When you hear the words, "it's malignant," your world stops. Everything feels out of control. But here's what no one tells you. Cancer doesn't get to decide what's next. You do. In this episode, you'll hear from author and best-selling novelist Cara Lockwood, who went from total shock to taking control of her life, even in the middle of treatment. Newly diagnosed? You don't have to face this alone. I'm Joelle Kaufman, and this is Kicking Cancer's Ass, your dose of hope, strength, and power, one episode at a time. Today, I have a fabulous guest. You may know her romance novels, Cara Lockwood, because she's written 35 or 38. I've lost count, but we all love a little dabble in the romance aisle, don't we? And she had the unfortunate luck of being diagnosed with breast cancer in September 2023, went through it, and used her formidable skill as a writer to create a book that is available now called There's No Good Book for This. I wrote one anyway, The Irreverent Guide to Crushing Breast Cancer. And obviously, since I wrote Crushing the Cancer Curveball, I feel she and I are on the same wavelength. So, Cara, welcome to Kicking Cancer's Ass.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. I've listened to several episodes of your podcast. I love it. I love how you advocate for people and help them advocate for themselves, and just let us all have some great lessons about how to kick cancer's ass, because that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. I loved that phrase was actually throughout your book.
Yes.
And this point that you are in control. You make choices. I know you had no family history. I do want to understand, like, that, the moment, like when you got that call that was supposed to be all clear, no big deal, and that wasn't the answer, kind of how you felt in that moment, and then what it took to get you to the realization of you're in control.
Yeah, it was a real, curveball. It was a real curveball. I had just a routine mammogram. And because I have dense breast tissue, of course, they asked me to come back. And then I thought, no big deal. This happens all the time. What was different is that they found a lump and wanted to do a biopsy. So that was different. But at the same time, I felt like, I've been through this over and over. They bring me in. It's got a follow-up scan. Everything's fine. So I was a little worried, but not overly worried, because, as you mentioned, cancer just didn't run in my family. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't heart disease, diabetes, strokes. These were things I was really worried about. Cancer just wasn't in the picture. So I got the call, and when I got the call, I heard malignant and it's cancer, and I just went into a white room. Like I completely disassociated from reality. Like it was just like, it was not something I was ready for. And I just went into this box. I don't know if you've ever seen Only Murders in the Building, but in the third season, Steve Martin, anytime he's stressed out, he goes into this white room, and I'm like, oh, I know where he is now.
So I talk about, you hear it's malignant, it's cancer, and suddenly you're in an episode of Peanuts.
Yes. Exactly. Absolutely. That is a perfect way of describing it. It's like, I'm here, I'm not hearing words,
right?
But I'm answering. Okay. Yes. What next? But it's nothing's going in.
Right.
Absolutely. I'm sure you felt the same way. Just nothing's going in.
I honestly, I had to say, I said to the surgeon who called me, I said, "You have got to be fucking kidding me." Right? That was literally the thing that came out of my mouth. And then I said, okay, so we do the surgery tomorrow, and I guess I got to do chemo. And realized, Cara, my surgery was a 14-hour thing. Right. I had planned, like you. I've got kids. I've got a job. This was a plan.
Right.
And, woman plans, God laughs. So I'm like, okay, so we do the surgery. She's like, no, we don't. I'm like, it was literally like that. Huh?
Right.
And you're in the, I'm sorry. Can you repeat? I don't think I'm speaking English anymore. What language are you speaking?
Exactly. And I felt for you when I read that in your book, because it's just, you were on a path, you were taking control, you were doing, a major surgery to just end this chapter sort of forever for you. And then they're like, no, actually, your path isn't here. It's actually up through Mount Everest. So, get ready, get your climbing gear. Like this is.
So how did you, you obviously started writing your journal.
Yes.
I started doing a caring bridge.
Yeah.
When was the moment, the epiphany, when you realized that, okay, all this stuff is coming at you, but Cara's in control?
Yeah. I really have to thank my counselor because I have a wonderful counselor, and she herself has dealt with cancer. She had a hysterectomy to get rid of her cancer. It was I think it began as cervical and moved, and so I know she went through the whole thing.
These damn ladies ruining the bars.
I know. I know exactly. It's like, do not get in the Uber. Do not ruin girls' night. What are you doing?
Right. For everybody who hasn't read Cara's book yet, and you should, she uses a fabulous metaphor of cancer is a bad girls' night, and she's just ruining the bar. And the thing you don't know is, did she just ruin one bar, or did she get into Uber, or what'd you say, punch a cop, or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. Like, how bad is this night going to get? We're just not sure yet, but she's out of control. That's what we know. That's what we know for sure. So I was just very lucky to have a counselor in my world, that I'd been to during difficult times in my life. And this was one of those. And she just really helped me see. One of the first things she said to me is that cancer doesn't get to decide. And I feel like that changed my entire perspective, because up until then, I was just in a tailspin. Oh no, cancer's in control. I just have to react constantly. I have no control. It's all in cancer's court. But she's like, cancer doesn't get to decide. You
so powerful.
Get to decide. You get to decide your treatment. You get to decide how you feel about it. Cancer doesn't decide any of those things. And I really think once I heard that message, it just completely shifted my frame of mind. Completely. I don't know how you got a handle on it, like to get the control back, but it's so important.
Well, there's a benefit to having seen it 12 times.
Yes.
There's certain patterns that you recognize.
Sure.
But I think in the very beginning, when you first get that diagnosis, everyone wants to start treatment right away, right? Let's go. I literally said to them, I'll start chemo tomorrow. They said, no, you won't. I'm like, come on, let's go.
Right, I want to just get this over with.
Exactly. Like the sooner it starts, the sooner it's over. There's a lot of testing, and you want that, right? You wanted to know that it hadn't moved around. Right? You wanted to know that you were HER2 positive. We needed to know I was triple negative, and how fast this little fucking girls' night ruiner was actually destroying stuff. And in my case, she was going fast. She was, because there was no sign of cancer in October, and she was 9 millimeters by January. Like, she was on a tear. But I did know, like, okay, when do we start? And then realized, this is going to be a marathon. I got to stop treating it like a sprint.
So true.
And, you talked about, at the end of the book, about the trip, about the Taylor Swift, which, who doesn't want to do that?
Right.
Exactly. And I put little celebrations in along the way. But the first thing I said to the oncologist was, hey, my kid is about to start his collegiate baseball career, and he's going to start in Florida, and we live in California. Is it safe for me to go?
Yeah.
And my chemo was weekly. Was your chemo weekly?
Yes, it was weekly, every Friday.
And mine was every Wednesday. So it's like, okay, can I do this? Can I disappear for 4 or 5 days and come back?
Yeah.
And the answer is that. The answer is yeah. You tell them about the book. You had to go do a book tour. Tell them about this.
Yeah. So cancer diagnosis is, they always come at the worst time. And
there's a good time?
Yeah, there's never a good time. There's never a good time. But for mine, my insurance was running out. So my Cobra was running out. And I just turned in a book, and I was about to promote my newest book, The Takeover, which, was top of my mind.
Sure.
So I would have to go on book signings. I'd have to go to book conferences. And now I had doctors saying, well, actually, you're going to maybe, have a mastectomy and chemotherapy. And I was like, how am I going to do that and promote my book? And, the oncologist, she was a wonderful doctor, but she doesn't really understand the publishing industry. So she was like, well, you'll just put it off, except,
Doesn't work that way.
right. In the publishing industry, they start like a year in advance. So by the time I got my diagnosis, they had already put 200 books in the hands of reviewers. There was already like momentum. There was already people like looking forward to the release date. And in this time of like, you don't have anyone's attention and attention spans are microscopic, if you lose someone's attention, if you say, oh, don't worry about it, it's going to be like 3 months or 6 months difference, then you've lost the audience. Like you're just not going to get them back. So I had to keep to the schedule. If I wanted the book to succeed, which I did because it was my baby and I'd spent a year on it and it was rivals to lovers and all the juicy things. And I wanted it out in the world and to give it its best shot. And so I needed to do both. And I really had no idea how I was going to do it. Like the idea of losing my hair and seeing people, just feeling sick and run down and having to make like promotional videos and Instagram posts. Like my life wasn't a rom-com and I was promoting a rom-com. Like how is that going to work? But I was very lucky in that I had an amazing support system and a wonderful spouse, my husband PJ, and
The rock star.
the rock star. He's a rock star. So in There's No Good Book for This, there are pep talks at the end of every chapter. But my husband gave me pep talks regularly, and he is a former Little League soccer coach. So his pep talks were in that vein of, come on, let's go to do this. Like, just very excited. So it was hard to stay down on myself. I think it was hard to focus on what I couldn't do because he helped me focus on what are the things I can do.
And you did it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's like you put on a scarf or a wig, you did your makeup, you put on a mask.
Yeah.
And we now live in an era where you put on a mask, nobody asks questions. And, people, a scarf or a wig, we think they notice, but unless they really know you, they're oblivious.
Right. Exactly. I mean, very few people noticed. But a lot of the time, I just felt so self-conscious that I would just mention it. I would just say, by the way, I'm going through this. And it was a tough decision to make because you've got a room full of people there for a
romance
comedy,
novel.
Romance novel, a rom-com, like something that's very happy. And so you're literally bringing the room down.
Okay, I got to throw you a curveball because the question keeps running through my head.
Sure.
You are a very accomplished romance writer. And I love the way you write. We'll get back to the show in just a second. If you're finding value in kicking cancer's ass, if these conversations are giving you more clarity, helping you feel more in control, and a lot less alone, please support the show and subscribe to our newsletter at kcapodcast.com. When you do, you'll find in-depth articles, searchable transcripts, and the KCA community. Everything on kcapodcast.com will help you have better, more confident conversations with your healthcare team so you can kick cancer's ass. So take a second, head over to kcapodcast.com on Substack and hit subscribe. Thank you. Let's get back to the show. Is there a romance novel in the future for a woman who's gone through?
Yeah.
I mean, because there is sex after mastectomy.
Yes.
There is romance after cancer.
Absolutely. I would love to write that book. And I think, it's something's percolating. Like, I think I need to let it like marinate, but
your process.
Yes, right. But I love that because it's such a key element of, this whole process. Like, who are you as a woman after, breast cancer? Like,
sure.
I had a double mastectomy and a large part of the psychology of that is really, who am I? Who am I without breasts? Like, who am I? Am I still this as sensual? Am I sensual in a different way? Do I
enjoy it?
Yeah.
I mean, like there's people, when you go through the mastectomy, you're going to lose sensation in some part of your breasts. And it's, And by the way, the men I've talked to who've gone through prostate cancer face a very similar, what is it going to mean for their
Right.
sexual health, their sex lives? And we don't talk about it enough. Not that we're going to do the sex episode right now, but I do want to do that episode. But
Sure.
I think the power of storytelling, the power of fiction, and the power of fantasy, I think there is I don't know how big the market is. I mean, there's 20 million cancer survivors walking around the United States.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of them read romance novels, and I don't know how many people who haven't been through it would read it. But there's definitely a story to be told.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think, I mean, what I know well as a romance novelist is romance goes beyond the physical. You know, the true connection is emotional. You know, so that part is still there, regardless of what your body's been through. So I think any novel, like any romance novel, would delve into that, the emotional bonds, the how we see ourselves, but also how we see our partner on an emotional level, not just a physical level. So no, I think the book's there.
Well, and would you share on that point? You know, you tackle this more in your book than I do in mine. The connection with PJ.
Yeah.
Right. And yes, he was your soccer coach, pep talker, but I think it was very powerful what he said to you when you expressed your concerns about your body and intimacy. Would you share that with people? It's in the book, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he, first of all, is just amazing. But he was just so wonderful in letting me know that I was more than my body, you know, and that I would always be, attractive to him because he loved me for me. So I think it's really so important for couples to be vulnerable and honest with each other, because I think, PJ was worried too about how I would feel about myself. He was never worried about how he would feel about me. But I think when your spouse is going through something like this, it's heavy, it's huge, it's big, it's hard to get your arms around, and it's really about connecting, being vulnerable with one another, sharing your fears. He was wonderful at making me feel seen, and nice. and being in it with me. And part of being in it with me is, saying you're terrified too. This is it's terrifying. It's horrible. Like it affects the entire family, and not just the patient. So I think it can be a time for couples to come together and be strong, and it can also be a time for couples to break apart. And I've seen both. Among my friend groups of people that either, they went back to back with each other, and like really fought it together. And then other couples that fought themselves, like as they were, working through that. But I was just very lucky to have someone who was vulnerable and honest with me, so that also I trusted him when he said that he would love me regardless of, It did not matter to him whatever kind of boobs I ended up with.
He was good.
He was good.
Although he did want to test the different implants. That was
he
fun.
did.
I could so see my dad doing that. So I had this, I don't know, insurance that you didn't, or assurance is probably the right word. My mother told me that after her, and she had a unilateral first, and then 20 years later had the bilateral. But she said, our sex life never faltered. Your father was great. So I had this, that's all the detail I ever wanted. Right. Clear. But it was like, okay, good to know.
Sure.
And then, my sister went through it when she was 29 and got married in the middle of hers. And her partner, they still were all good. And my husband kind of had these models that he had seen. And he'd seen sometimes people, the partner making their partner's cancer about them and how hard it was on them. And Neil, my husband, made this choice that, look, I'm in it with you. I'll do whatever you want, but I am going to work so hard not to make this about me. This is about you.
Yeah.
And it sounds like PJ did that too.
Oh, he absolutely did. He absolutely did. I mean, I think on the one hand, I mean, I can understand spouses that inadvertently make it about them because it's just such a horrible thing. And people are not asking how they are. Usually.
Right.
Yeah.
We do, because we know, but
we do. But at the same time, it is about, being there for your spouse going through this cancer. And like PJ just made it a priority, like every doctor's appointment, everything he could do to pick up slack, he did. And I just felt so, seen, so supported. And I think that's the basis really of any good bond, any good marriage, any good relationship. I mean, it's a partnership so that when one person needs help, the other picks it up. And then, we're all going to have moments where we need help, where we, need support. And knowing that you have a partner that has your back, I mean, that's what true love is, really, is having someone in your corner. And I think sex is just one extension of that. Like, how strong is your bond? How much do you support one another? And if you do, then the sex won't waver. Right. It's an expression of that. And that's what makes it so beautiful.
I agree. And I think it's really important for people listening to understand you are in control, which means you can tell your partner how you want them to support. For example, my husband didn't go to every appointment. My appointments were when I had chemo. We put them together, and I had different friends who were taking me. And that was my preference, not because I didn't want him there, but like I didn't want him working while I was doing chemo, and that's what he was going to have to do.
Yeah.
So for me, I chose a different path, but because he respected that and didn't make it about his need to be in the room, that worked for me. And you had a different path. And there's probably hybrids and other pathways. And, I have friends who've gone through this as single moms, and they've had a sibling or a friend, or there's ways to do it, but you are in control.
Yes. And I think that's so important. And it goes back to advocating for yourself, what you really need. Because, I mean, cancer is no time just to be polite and nice.
No, as you said, you have the cancer card. You got dealt it, so use it.
Yes, you have the cancer card. The only good thing about cancer is the cancer card. You can use it often, use it to get out of things you don't want to do. You don't have the energy for it. You're fighting cancer. Like, use that cancer card. And that card can be used, in any relationship that is including your closest relationships. So, if your spouse is, really wanting to be with you at every appointment, but you don't, like you're that's not helping you, then look for a different way for support. I mean, it comes back to that open, honest, vulnerable communication where you're willing to be brutally honest about what you need, and that your spouse will listen to what you need. Like, so important. And, you have 5 kids in your blended family. I have 3 in my not blended, but that's just their families, right? I found it was so important for my husband to set the tone. And my kids are a little older than yours. So, the youngest was 15, but I had 2 that were in college. And he set the tone. They looked to me for how are you reacting? And I looked at them. I wasn't as terrified as you were, Cara, because I have a history that I said, this is going to be a significant irritation to my life. But my mom's lived 42 years after breast cancer. So I'm pretty sure that our type of cancer, which we knew about, responds to treatment. So yay. So I could look at the kids and say, this isn't going to kill me. Like, this is going to be a bitch. I don't want this. I'm potentially going to miss some things. I'm going to try not to, but you're going to have to be patient with me. But they really wanted to know, does Dad believe her? Yeah. That's so true. That is so true. Like, she could be like, what is Dad bought in? Yeah. Right. Yeah. Is Dad bought into this? Is it, something we can believe too? Yeah.
But it was important, because that sets the tone. Like, how are we dealing as a family?
Yes. Yes, because it affects everyone. And, you know, I'll say too, after I went into remission, I heard stories from our kids, from my daughters, about ways it affected them that I didn't even understand at the time. I mean, obviously I was distracted, but right. And I tried to be tuned in because I knew, you know, it's a devastating thing to lay on teenagers, like, or any kids of any age. It's just, as you well know, because you were a child.
I was a teenager.
Yeah, you were a teenager when, you know, it happened to your family.
Yeah.
And it just, I think, feels so hard, you know, as a mom. I'm sure you know, like, this is the last thing you wanted to lay at your kid's feet. Like,
so
this
true.
You know, and I felt so much guilt about it. I don't know if you did.
I felt guilt for probably a different reason. Mine was like, why didn't I do this surgery a year ago? Right? Like I had delayed this. I'm at fault, right? And now they have to live through this. But my daughter, I worked really hard, and actually too hard, because I got the message afterwards, like you did.
Yeah, same.
But I didn't want her to be on the front line to support. I wanted her life to be normal, right? And we succeeded. Like, we succeeded at that. And then she says to us, I don't know, 6 months later, she goes, yeah, I felt like you didn't trust that I could handle it. I'm like, oh my God.
I know. You can't win. You can't win.
I mean, teenage girls, there's a whole bunch of stuff. But, you know, I was like, of course you could handle it. I just didn't want that to be your experience. But, you know, I think better, if I had communicated better, if I had asked her how she wanted to help, that probably would have been better than making an assumption. Like, if I could run that part back.
Sure. No, I feel the same way, because I really did try to keep it, you know, away from them. Like, no, I'm fine. Like, you know, and I would ask things of them, like, well, you're going to have to do some more chores, and like, we're, you know, all going to pitch in for dinner, or, you know, it's a DoorDash night. Like, there were many times, or I can't make that recital. Like, you know, I really want to, and I can't. Like, so there were plenty of times where they were asked to sacrifice and do things, but I did want to protect them as well. And just like you, when it was done, I realized there's really no protecting them.
Nope.